Hello everybody, welcome back to Paleo Springs and welcome to our first part of our new Morrison Formation mini-series. So if the last video didn't give it away to you, that's what we're doing. We are recreating here the Morrison Formation sort of as it would have been, and I thought that it would be a cool idea kind of playing off of the Jurassic Park or Jurassic World, I guess, Camp Cretaceous, of making this the Morrison campground. So I have a little trail that runs through here. We're using the pine bark pathing because I think it fits really well. Oh, I never even noticed that little rhododendron right there. That's really cool. Yeah, so I already did a little bit of this work ahead of time. I'll show you an overview in just a second before we get into the speed build here. But I made, just to test out the idea, and I'm going to be copy and pasting these pretty much everywhere around this path. So I just made these little tents with the canvas fabric here, these metal poles, and then again, super simple. It just basically gives the idea of a tent, and then we have the stone campfire here in the middle. And yeah, of course it's going to save right when I do that. But yeah, so we have one campsite here. I'm going to have another one here and another one here. So 3 in total. I'm thinking I might go through eventually and add some cabins. I think that would be pretty cool for like a sort of elevated quote unquote camping experience. Maybe some tree houses. I don't know. We'll see what happens down the road. But I would just wanted to do that to sort of do some testing off screen to see if this would even work, if it would even be feasible to sort of make a tent. So that brings us here to our Morrison Formation. It's going to take up this whole area here, probably honestly even a little bit more than this. And that's because, if you didn't know, the Morrison Formation has basically all the big name dinosaurs. It's got Brontosaurus, it's got Apatosaurus, it's got Brachiosaurus, it's got Stegosaurus, it's got basically all of these big name dinosaurs. Allosaurus in there, which I think Allosaurus and Stegosaurus are coming down the road into Prehistoric Kingdom, but they're not in here right now. But for today's speed build, before we get into it, it was decided by you all. So I actually put out 2 polls, one on YouTube and one on Reddit, and both of them decisively chose the Brontosaurus. So that's what we're going to be building over here in this area, and we're going to jump into that speed build right now. All right, so yeah, like I was saying earlier, we're building this enclosure here for the Brontosaurus. And also, like I said, I put a poll here on YouTube and up on Reddit, and both of them concisively decided the Brontosaurus for the animal for this enclosure. Now, I think that that's really interesting, honestly, because I would have personally chosen the Apatosaurus. I've always been kind of partial to the Apatosaurus, even, watching the Flintstones as a kid and seeing the Brontosaurus that they have there. Obviously, Nigel Marvin here in the game talks about Gertie the dinosaur being sort of the mainstay in Hollywood and one of the first animated dinosaurs, which as a animator myself, that's super interesting to me because I did not know that. But yeah, I would have chosen the Apatosaurus. However, I'm really glad that all of you chose the Brontosaurus, and here we are again making this habitat. So what you can see me doing here is pretty bog standard, pretty standard stuff that we've done here on the channel before. Making the backstage area, turning this plant food production corner into a sort of a greenhouse space here. I always like to do this for these plant production buildings that they have here in the game. They're really well put together, but they don't come covered, and I think that that's kind of unfortunate because I would expect plants specifically to be grown in a sort of a greenhouse area. So yeah, again, this is all pretty standard. You'll see me go later in the video and change around this backstage area specifically because the Brontosaurus, the hitbox, is a little too big. And this is a problem that a lot of the animals have in Prehistoric Kingdom, where the animals themselves are one size, but their hitbox, the area that they can traverse, is actually a lot larger than that animal itself. It's just a problem that a lot of the animals have. It's not a bad problem, but yeah, so again, this is all pretty standard here. Side note, for those of you that have been keeping up with the channel and heard about my layoff that I had earlier this month, or last month, I guess, since this is coming out in February, I now have a new job, and I actually am starting it the day that this video comes out. I'll be working in a art museum. So unfortunately, I won't get to talk to kids about dinosaurs, but that gives me an opportunity to focus on the channel here and use this as a means to talk about science and history outside of work. Maybe we'll do some art videos, I guess. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, to kind of use this channel a little bit more as my science and history passions and loves here. Yeah, I think that that's pretty cool and really excited to get started. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously, you all will most likely know how it goes. I'll most likely be saying all that stuff here. But yeah, so for those of you that don't have the game or watching this from afar, because I know there are some of you out there that have told me you don't have the game because it's still in early access, or you have a console and that's your only device, and so you're watching this game, watching me play just to kind of live out the dream, I guess. For those of you that don't know, the Brontosaurus and Apatosaurus are what's called alternate versions of each other. So the way that Prehistoric Kingdom treats these dinosaurs is they're basically the same base model with a different skin. And I think technically the models are changed ever so slightly. So like, for example, the Tyrannosaurus Rex and the Tarbosaurus are alternate species of each other, but I believe the Tarbosaurus is kind of remodeled a little bit. I don't know how much the Brontosaurus is remodeled, but yeah, they are alternate versions of each other. And it's very fitting because we're going to talk about later in this video about something called the Bone Wars. And the Bone Wars were a really, really fascinating time. I'm actually bringing a guest on here in this video, so I hope you all enjoy that. But we're going to talk a little bit now about the Morrison Formation, the sort of paleontology, or not paleontology, paleoecology, I guess you could say, of this environment here, what animals would have been found, that sort of stuff. So the Morrison Formation, again, we're doing a whole series on that. We're going to do a few enclosures here, kind of keep them all close together and try to make them seem like they flow and, work together as well. So the Morrison Formation was a Jurassic formation. If you have seen Jurassic Park, most of those dinosaurs in there were not from the Jurassic. Really, I think the first one was the Dilophosaurus, I believe. No, that's a Triassic. Is it? No, that's Jurassic. Dilophosaurus is Jurassic. But aside from that, most of the dinosaurs that are super, super iconic come from the Jurassic, like the Brachiosaurus, the Stegosaurus, Allosaurus. There's a lot of the really famous ones that also come from the Cretaceous, T-Rex, Triceratops, dinosaurs like that. But for the Morrison Formation specifically, this is an area that back in ye olden times would have likely been a coniferous forest, as much of the formations were at that time, very heavily planted with conifers, so these redwoods, pine trees, ginkgos, things like that, with vast expanses of fern plains. And I have to be careful not to say grasslands, because according to my research that I did before this video, grass was not first developed, in and of itself, until around 70 million years ago, which was in the late Cretaceous. So these dinosaurs would have never seen or touched grass, which is really kind of cool. So you'll see later in the video when I do the landscaping, I actually get rid of all of the grass here. Now, the implications that has for this place being a state park or a national park, I think are kind of interesting, and feel free to have a debate down in the comments below of, should we have removed that grass? Do you think that it would have hurt or hindered this state park in and of itself? I don't know. Let me know again in the comments down below what your thoughts are, but I removed the grass here for the sake of making this enclosure feel and look like the Morrison Formation, which again was mostly dirt, pine needles, rocky terrains, and then a lot of ferns. Jumping back here just to quickly mention what I'm doing here in the video. What I'm doing right now is I'm making a boardwalk. So these are actually grid pieces, but I completely went off the grid here and overlaid these in such a way to make it seem like one sort of seamless boardwalk. And I think the end result is really phenomenal. Now, we're going to do this kind of different, uploading these to the Steam Workshop. So typically in the past, I would have made the entire exhibit itself, the fences and all, because as you all know, I have said many times, we cannot group the fences into the blueprints on the Steam Workshop. So since I am using the in-game fences for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this boardwalk and the backstage area up on the workshop. You all can go and download them and then make this habitat yourself. The Brontosaurus, I think in game needs around 15 to 17,000 square meters, I believe. In reality, this turns out to be closer to 20,000 square meters. Again, the hitboxes are kind of weird, and that can be bigger or smaller depending on how much open space you have, but this is well over the amount of space that the Brontosaurus needs, and we'll probably be putting in some other dinosaurs here as well into this habitat later on. So yeah, jumping back into talking about the Brontosaurus here, the reason that they are alternate species of each other is actually related to that thing again that we're going to talk about later with the Bone Wars. So there were these two guys, Edward Cope and Ornithal Marsh. Cope and Marsh basically are the two names that you need to remember. And again, we'll talk about all of this later in the video as well. But they tried to discover as many dinosaurs as they could in and amongst themselves. And one of them, I forget which one, discovered the Apatosaurus, and the other one discovered another bone that they named the Brontosaurus. Now, the Brontosaurus became instantly known as a classic, again, because of Gertie, the animated dinosaur. It became instantly a part of the cultural zeitgeist, and people were able to recognize Brontosaurus, and a lot of people hadn't heard of Apatosaurus. And so I think that's really fascinating. Again, the Flintstones even had Brontosaurus, so the wow factor of Brontosaurus is definitely there. However, in the scientific community, if you were to say before 2015 that Brontosaurus was a real dinosaur that existed here on the Earth, you would get laughed out of the scientific community. And I think that's super interesting because it kind of shows how these things change over time. to adapt to the new information that's out there. And so, yeah, before 2015, if you said Brontosaurus was real, you would get laughed at, you would get scoffed at, your research wouldn't be taken seriously. But now, again, after 2015, it is accepted that Brontosaurus is a different and unique species separate from Apatosaurus. Now, when it comes to the actual paleontology, what makes them different and unique? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I honestly tried looking it up before this video, and I could not find anything. So if you know, let me know in the comments what makes these two dinosaurs unique. I talk about a little bit later in the live play about the osteoderms on the neck of the Brontosaurus. In game in Prehistoric Kingdom, the Brontosaurus has these osteoderms, these sort of bony plates on its neck, and the Apatosaurus does not. In actuality, it's a coin toss whether or not the Brontosaurus had those, the Apatosaurus had those, any dinosaurs had those, or they didn't. One of the things that you could see in, I think, Prehistoric Planet, the David Attenborough series on Apple Plus, if anybody has Apple Plus. But that was a really good show, by the way. But they had in there one of the famous scenes, the clips that gets thrown around, was the sauropods with the air sacs on their neck. These are all reconstructions, recreations of things of sort of paleo art. None of it is actually really backed up. There are things to base off of science-wise when it comes to all of that, but nothing really at the end of the day that's concrete that says, yes, Brontosaurus had these osteoderms. Yes, sauropods had these air sacs on their neck. Yeah, it's just kind of all speculation. So if you know what makes Brontosaurus unique scientifically, let me know again in the comments down below. But yeah, here you can see I got rid of all the grass, painted a lot of dirt in here, probably too much dirt. But I do go back over it. This is really kind of therapeutic, honestly, because it's like painting the landscape here. I do apologize if the video is a little stuttery or a little laggy. I've been dealing with computer problems here for a little bit. Hopefully they're resolved after this video, but yeah, I've been dealing with laggy issues, not just in this game, in a lot of other games too, but it was really noticeable to me when I was trying to do some of this here in this game. So yeah, I do apologize for that. Hopefully it's fixed in the future. But yeah, so with this landscaping here now being put out, I am going to leave it off here, and we'll pick it back up in the live stream in just a couple minutes. All right, so we're back in the live play, and I want to hang out with this Brontosaurus here for just a couple seconds, because I want to tell you all a little bit more about this design. If you would be quiet. So you guys can see here these osteoderms, these bony plates here on the neck. We don't actually know if this is real or not, if they had this, you know, in life when they did exist. The Apatosaurus does not have it, and there's speculation that it could have either one could have had them. You can see the thickness of the neck here. That was given to them by the dev team as a means of showing dominance displays and sort of fighting amongst males for the purposes of mating. And so, so the osteoderms were added there as like a sort of a sense of armor, I guess. This dinosaur also came in the update with the Ankylosaurus, so also is fitting kind of to have these osteoderms there as well. I think this is our male right here. Yeah, this is our male right here. And I mean, just take a look at these colors here. I'm going to actually pause those oranges there. I really, really love that. And I love how subtle the color is on this. He's not completely orange. These lightning strike stripes here really add to the flavor, I guess. And you can actually see here too what I was talking about earlier when it comes to the shadows and these stripes here. So the patterning on the Brontosaurus tells me that these would have lived in more of a forested area. Is there any validity to that? Probably not. But in the real life, when an animal has stripes, it means that they're trying to hide in and amongst something else. And so what these stripes do is you can actually see as it's walking. It's kind of hard to see here with the shadows, but you can actually see that it's kind of blending it in versus the spot light that's on it, just regularly. So here is the overview of the exhibit here, and I really, really like it. To talk a little bit more, just before we wrap up the video, about the dispute between Apatosaurus and Brontosaurus, I actually want to pass it over to a friend of mine and a former colleague from the museum that I used to work for. Her name is Katie, and she's a paleontologist, way cooler than me. But she knows a lot specifically of an event called the Bone Wars, which Nigel Marvin in here actually touches on. He talks briefly about sort of just the dispute back and forth between Brontosaurus and Apatosaurus when it comes to the Bone Wars. So I'm going to pass it off to Katie. Katie, take it away.
Why, thank you, John. Yes, so when I graduated with a degree in anthropology and history, and for my senior thesis, I wrote a huge paper on the Bone Wars and cultural nationalism, but we're not going to get too deep in the weeds here today. We're just going to do an overview of what the Bone Wars is. So first things first, it took place in the United States. It was centered largely around the Morrison Formation, which I believe John has probably already covered, but if not, it is in the American West, and it goes a little bit into Canada. So it's just kind of one niche area, and the fossils found here are from the Jurassic time period. So it really is kind of a niche that they're carving here. But a lot of this had been previously undiscovered because paleontology was really popular and developed in Europe, but in the United States, it had sort of fallen behind. In Philadelphia, we had the Academy of Natural Sciences, and Joseph Leidy, known as the father of American paleontology, was associated with the Academy. Philadelphia became known as the capital of American paleontology because it actually held the first fully reconstructed dinosaur as well as the second. So that was a huge milestone for them. It really put them on the map. Associated with Philadelphia was a man called Edward Drinker Cope. He eventually started working at the Academy for no cost. He wasn't being paid, he just loved to do the work. And he had the privilege of having a rich family background. So money wasn't of the most concern to him yet. So working in Philadelphia, working with Joseph Leidy, working with these dinosaurs, he was able to solidify kind of a name for himself. There were ups and downs, and there were moments where he wasn't well regarded in the public because of mistakes he made. But this happened for both Cope and our other individual here, Othniel Charles Marsh. So Marsh wasn't located in Philadelphia. Instead, he was located in New Haven, Connecticut, which is where Yale is. His uncle was Peabody, and the Peabody Museum is a result of a donation his uncle made to Yale to basically bribe Yale into giving Marsh this professorship in paleontology. So Marsh becomes the first professor of paleontology. Marsh and Cope met years and years before in Berlin, and they were actually quite friendly with one another. But what happened over the course of years is some backstabbing happened, some snide remarks, some smearing in scientific journals as they tried to make a name for themselves at the expense of the other. So this soured what could have been a very fantastic and beneficial friendship between the two of them, and this animosity was created. So the Bone Wars is this period between the 1870s and the 1900s where these two men were doing everything they could to discover every dinosaur they could, putting their name, attaching their name to these discoveries, because the hope was they wanted to have more discoveries than the other individual. So who won the Bone Wars? It depends on how you want to look at it. Is it based on who discovered the most dinosaurs, or are we looking at it more holistically? Because dinosaurs were not the only things discovered and described during this time by these two men. It's also worth mentioning that they didn't actually do most of the discovering. Since they had a financial background to support them, they would hire teams of fossil hunters to go set up quarries, send their discoveries back to their relating institution, Yale for Marsh, the Academy for Cope, and they would describe them and take credit for them themselves. So, the Bone Wars, TLDR, is this period of competitive rivalry between Marsh and Cope. It included things such as, I mentioned before, smearing in scientific journals. It got incredibly petty, and it became so petty that Joseph Leidy, the predecessor of these two men from the Academy, actually left the entire field of paleontology because he was embarrassed by what they had made of it. So both Marsh and Cope had died at the beginning of the 20th century, and this put an end to the Bone Wars. But we still feel the waves of what they had accomplished today, and we're still untangling some of their great debates on how they defined and described many of our famous American dinosaurs.
Thanks, Katie. I really appreciate you doing that for me. Again, Katie is super amazing, and give her love in the comments for doing this. It was awesome to get to collab with her for this little video here. But this is where I'm going to end it off for you guys. And as always, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to spend a little bit of it here and watch me build this gigantic exhibit. I think this is the largest exhibit that we have. Yeah, it is. It's almost the size of the entire spring, doubled. So yeah, I want to thank you again for spending the time here and watching me build this gigantic exhibit. There's a million things you could have been doing, and you chose to spend a little bit of that time here with me and build this exhibit. As always, links will be down below if you guys want to download any of this stuff, but this is where I'm going to leave it off. So as always, I will see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.